Let's take a stock report on some Tennessee players midway through fall camp. I'm going to name a player. You guys tell me if their stock is up or their stock is down or stagnant at this point in fall camp. We'll start.
Card Sharks, baby. Card Sharks. Here we go.
We will start with Arion Carter at linebacker. Stock up, down, or stagnant?
I think it feels like stock's up. Don't you guys think?
My stock's up on Arion Carter.
I mean, it sounds like
absolutely.
It feels like he's generating some buzz.
Yep, he's healthy, ready to go, going to start. I'm up on Arion Carter, AP.
Yep, stock up.
Let's go Caleb Herring. Haven't heard a lot about Caleb Herring.
I would go stock stagnant here, just because, I mean, they are so deep there. I mean, they don't have to have him be some superstar. But I think he's, when he gets in the game, that's what, which goes back to the point we made in the last segment. Like, if you're those offensive linemen on other teams and you see a Tennessee defense rotate, you'll be like, oh, thank gosh, that guy's coming out of there. And then this guy's going to go, whoa, what is that? So, I mean, I would go stock stagnant for right now. But, I mean, when you look at the weight and stuff, it's hard not to see that he's going to be stock up pretty quick once he can put pen to paper in terms of playing time.
A guy we heard an awful lot about in spring that we haven't heard as much in fall camp, linebacker Jeremiah Thielander.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen it in the scrimmage, but it feels like Carter is kind of leapfrogged him, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I think Jeremiah's going to play. But.
Yeah, I think Thielander is an inside guy. I mean, I think that's a deal with him and Peely, and I think Carter's more of the space guy. I'm not saying Thielander can't play out there, but I think there's a comfort level with him being more of an in the box, more of an in the box true inside linebacker, more with Peely. Again, I mean, the buzz on the defense has been all about the defensive front, and rightfully so, because I mean, I think they've handled a lot of things. So I would say, to a degree, it feels like a linebackers in general. Even though I love where Carter's at athletically. I think he looks the part fantastically. You haven't heard, man, they had a bunch of tackles or they racked up a bunch of negative yards plays. It's much more about the defensive line right now on this defense. At least it was on Friday night. But I think Thielander and Peely are going to rotate. But. And they're going to play because I think William Inge wants to rotate those guys. I don't think that Thielander's down. He's probably just kind of where he was in the spring. The difference is Peely's out there, and he's splitting more reps than he was splitting in the spring.
I think we can all agree that Jon McCoy's stock is up significantly, right? I mean, we knew that he was a playmaker in spring, but he's a bit more comfortable now, and he's going to start. He's going to be a playmaker.
Yes.
So all the conversations about the other safety, but what about Andre Turrentine? Stock up or down?
I'm going to say stagnant.
I mean, I think his stock is up from where he was a year ago. I don't know how much significantly it's up since the spring. I think Andre's one of those guys that, playing time, getting some reps, getting to play probably is a big help to him. I'm not saying he's a bad practice player, but I think for his engagement, involvement and reps or, playing in a game is a big deal for him. I think he's done some solid things. So, I mean, up from where it was a year ago, probably about where he was coming out of spring practice. I don't know that there's anything dramatically different right now.
John Slaughter felt like he was on the up, but again, it's in a battle there at safety. I haven't heard his name an awful lot, whereas we've heard Will Brooks and Jacoby Thomas.
Well, I know that they've rotated a lot on the practice field with those safeties, which tells me that John Slaughter's stock is up from where it was. Now, that doesn't mean he's getting ready to be a starter, but they are more freely rotating, or they have been more freely rotating at the safety position. We'll see how that trickles and changes as we move forward here over the next week or so. But I think John Slaughter's stock is up from the spring. That doesn't mean he's getting ready to be a starter, but I do think that he's gotten more comfortable, and I think he's earning a little more trust from the coaching staff, AP, or a little more confidence from the coaching staff. Maybe that's a better word.
Yeah, I agree. I think, again, it's somebody who drew a ton of buzz from his practice time a year ago. I know I was hoping to take a big leap this offseason, and at least has made some semblance of a move in fall camp. I don't know how much that is, but I know that there's been some compliments thrown his way behind the scenes.
Let's do this position group together because it feels like when you mention one, you mention the other two. Tight end, feels like all three of those guys, Ethan Davis, Holden Stays, Miles Kitselman, are going to play. Ethan Davis and Miles Kitselman, I feel like it'd be 2 thumbs up for stock up because you hear about them all the time. But overall, Rob, it feels like tight end, thumbs up, especially where you were at the end of last year when you literally had no clue.
Yeah, I mean, compared to what you were looking at in December, I mean, I would almost argue that it's maybe a position of strength now, and and a lot of that has to do with. I mean, I think Ethan Davis has got a chance to be a dude. I mean, in this offense, I mean, as creative as Heupel is, and they have not had a guy at tight end even close to him. And I will be interested to see what they can do with him. And the weight gain. I mean, he had to get stronger. He's done that. I mean, Kitselman. He looks. I mean, I'm not saying he's Kellen Winslow or anything, but I mean, he's not just a big physical blocker. I mean, that guy moves pretty well.
It's not Victor McClure playing.
That's a good one.
Putting on a tight end jersey, right? Right.
That's a great reach.
Yeah, he's not a guard playing tight end. I mean, he's a better athlete. I think that position group as a whole is an up. AP. I think. I mean, for me, Kitselman's the biggest surprise. I knew Ethan Davis was always a good athlete. It was a matter of could he stay healthy and could he get physical enough. When Miles Kitselman got here, has there been any less fanfare for a scholarship transfer from one SEC school to another than Miles Kitselman? I mean, it was just like he just kind of showed up, right? Like he wasn't coveted in the portal. He didn't take 4 or 5 visits. He just, oh yeah, they took this guy. They took this transfer from Alabama. But the reality is he's going to play a lot.
Absolutely, and was thought of by many just to be a depth piece. Came in here in the spring. Now, the surprise was spring, Hubs. I don't think you're surprised now. I mean, there was more buzz out of him last spring than anybody.
Fair.
And so, I mean, this is a kid that somebody got on the general's quarter said, looks just like Jacob Warren. Yeah, because he wears 87. Joey or Jimmy Holiday didn't look like, Jermaine Copeland just because he wore number 6. I mean, that's silliness. So, I mean, those guys are different players, just in body type, how they block, how they do all those things. But Kitselman's a guy that, came in with not a lot of fanfare, as Hub said, and just kind of put his head down and went to work. And he's got 1 year left, and he is going to throw everything he can in this last run here with Tennessee and see what happens. But, I mean, that position on the whole is definitely stock up. I mean, even Holden Stays, who, came in from Notre Dame with all the fanfare, is going to help this football team. It's not like he can't play.
Right.
I think what you found out here is get someone coming from Alabama in the SEC,
probably a little more prepared.
Yeah.
I think what's going to be interesting to me, Eric, is do they really start to play some 2 tight end stuff, which we really haven't seen a whole lot of. Do they do that in particular in the red zone? Because I mean, when you look at them in the red zone, that's the biggest area they've got to improve upon. I mean, there's not a bigger stock down coming out of last year than their offensive inefficiency in the red zone.
Yeah.
I mean, 26 fewer red zone touchdowns from 22 to 23, which is pretty remarkable when you think about 22 and the visions you have of 22 is Jalen Hyatt's running 50 yards for a score against somebody. But they had 26 fewer red zone touchdowns a year ago than they had in 22 and only 14 fewer trips. So how much do they use 2 tight ends in the red zone? Can they create some schematic advantages in those areas with 2 tight ends, which they haven't been able to do really in the past?
Yeah, and they've tried, talking about counting on, one hand how many times they put, a couple of tight ends out there together in the red zone. They've tried it. They just don't, again, they haven't had the luxury. They haven't had the ability to do that in years past, but I think they do this year. So, I'll be intrigued to see if that is incorporated in the offense and the red zone where they've got to get better. They got to improve. Let's do a couple more here. This one I think is interesting because it might not be any fault of his own. He had a ton of hype in spring, but the position group is just so good. Braylon Staley, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, just it doesn't seem like we're hearing a lot of buzz. Man, that's going to be a tough. I mean, even for Mike Matthews and all the hype, I mean, that's going to be a hard place for a freshman to get reps. I mean, watching Braylon, I mean, running around out there, I mean, he looks like the real deal. But man, that's tough to get reps at receiver for a freshman right now.
Yeah, he was kind of the story the first couple of days of spring.
What's that, AP?
I said, which just makes him stock stagnant. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's not a negative on him. I mean, they look pretty loaded out there to me.
Jake Merklinger, his progression.
I don't
know. I would say stagnant.
I mean, here's the thing, and this is what I'll say about Jake Merklinger. I think he's gotten better. I think he's definitely better than he was in the spring, as you would expect. If Nico lost his helmet, had to have his ankle retaped, or if Tennessee was needing, for whatever reason, somebody to close out a game, it's Gaston Moore. If Nico were hurt for any kind of period of time, they're playing both those quarterbacks. They play Merklinger and Moore. And that's where it's at right now. And I think Merklinger's gotten stronger. I think he's starting to understand things better. Here's the thing that people need to understand and probably doesn't get talked about enough, which is really kind of ironic, because the notion by some people about Josh Heupel's offense is it's so quarterback friendly, and it doesn't prepare you for the next level because it's one-sided or it's such a schematic advantage and this, that, and the other. The reality is they asked their quarterbacks to do a lot. I mean, they asked them mentally to do a lot of stuff. And so I think to come in as, I think it's unfair to come in as a freshman and say, okay, this guy's going to be, he's automatically your backup and he's ready to go if anybody needed. I mean, Joe was going to have to struggle mightily for there ever to be a conversation about Nico. And there wasn't even after the A&M game when Joe did struggle mightily because he just wasn't ready mentally for all that they asked him to do in this offense. So I think Jake's Merklinger's at a stock stagnant, but he's better than he was in the spring, and he's in a natural progression of a young quarterback in a offense that asks the quarterback to do a lot of things.
Last one's kind of a two-parter, and maybe this is unfair, but because he's been a bit banged up and because of the evolution, I guess, of Chris Brazel, who is stock up significantly, Dante Thoron will be stocked down, right? Because others are going out there making headlines right now, and he's getting back on the practice field, and he's been out there the last couple of days. But while he's been out, it's almost like he's been passed, and he had a really, really good spring.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for him is, and we've said it for a month, a month plus about that position group. Better not take an off day. Better not miss time, because if you do, there's somebody there to take those reps and give a chance to take your spot, or to move up the depth chart, if you will. And I think him missing time, and Mike Matthews missing time, I think those guys are just kind of a little bit flat right now. And that's not their fault that they miss time, but because they miss time, it's given Nimrod more opportunities, right? It's given Brazel plenty of chances out there, and some of those guys. So, we'll see. I mean, I think this is a big scrimmage, and I said it earlier. I think that's why this scrimmage is important, because I think they're going to get some of those guys back. And there's some guys who need to get back, right? Matthews needs to get on the field and show what he can do. I mean, Andre Kuric, if he's going to be the starting guard, he's got to practice. I mean, he's got to scrimmage at some point.
I agree. I think this one is as big of a scrimmage for that one kid as anybody. You can talk about them, but at some point they got to be out there and perform. It's not their fault that they're hurt. I'm not saying that, that they're mailing it in. There's no suggestion of that at all. But they have to get well and get out there and show what they can do. And until they do, their stock's not really anything right now. As Jason Swain said on The Nation Sunday night, reciting Philip Fulmer's words.
You ain't making a club in the tub.
There you go.